From KMUW Wichita,
from Toronto, Ontario,
and from Armenia, Spain,
this is You're Saying It Wrong. Let's talk words. Let's talk fun with syntax and a few other things. I'm Fletcher Powell, host and producer at KMUW in Wichita, Kansas. And joining me, as they do each week, language experts and New York Times bestselling authors Kathy Petrus and Ross Petrus.
Hello, Kathy. Hello, Ross. Quick hellos today because we have a lot to get to. Topic number one, more pet peeves. Go.
Well, this is not a pet peeve. Oh, God.
You just, man.
I see, there's one of my pet peeves when I'm not really good at instructions, am I? Anyway, but we want your pet peeves. We've been collecting a ton of them, and they're loads of fun, or they're very irritating. I don't know how to put that. Irritating in a good way, I guess. So please keep sending in your pet peeves, because we're going to do this omnibus of the pet peeve-orama, pet peeve-alooza. I don't know, something like that. In the meantime, shall I go on? We got another email, but this is not a pet peeve.
Oh. You lied to me, and you lied to me in the email description then of what we're talking about.
Ross did it then. I did not write that.
Well, you could view it as a pet peeve that we didn't mention this. How about that?
Can I interject here and say Ross used to work as a diplomat, and you see why? Okay, Ross, go.
Okay, this is from Duff in California. And he asked, in your recent discussion of do, you failed to mention the way the British tend to deploy do at the end of a sentence, as in this example I found on the web. She said it doesn't affect her, but it must do. I can imagine myself using do so, but never just do. Catherine, do you want to weigh in here?
Well, we do apologize, Duff. We do. But actually, all kidding aside, this is something that do at the end of the sentence. We both have, Ross and I, been intrigued since we were kids. We've mentioned before we grew up for a while in Egypt, so we read a lot of British books, including a lot of Enid Blyton's, which were loads of fun. I know they're not great lit, but we love them. And that was very common, that it must do this thing at the end.
I've heard people say, I might do.
Yeah, and it's so odd as an American, isn't it? Have you ever said anything remotely like that, Fletcher?
No, probably not. I mean, I wouldn't, and certainly if I had, it was because I heard, somebody on some British show that I watched a long time ago say
it. Yeah.
Definitely not something that
it's totally, it's a very British English dialect thing. And the do, you're referring back. There's no need for that do at all. Right. And it's not ungrammatical to have it, nor is it ungrammatical to not have it, but it's used. It's a very dialectical thing.
And you can hear it. Like she says, it doesn't affect her, but it must do. And you can hear it right there. Do is referring to the effect, the verb.
Well, I'm thinking of it like my friend Margaret is a Brit, and she's always like, blah, blah, blah. Yes, it can do. I can, you want to go out, blah, 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 blah. This is years ago. She was like, I'd like to, but there's stuff I have to do. I must do. I can do. It's like, it's very, it's kind of musical though. Go on, what?
But we say, you ask somebody to do something. Can you pick up my dog from the kennel? Right?
I'll do.
Somebody says, can do.
Can do. You're right. Can do. You're right. I can do. Perfect.
Oh, yeah, you're right. But those are the CBs, too. Wasn't that their
CBs? I think it was, actually.
Yeah, that was their slogan, can do.
Actually, do you want to know the technical term for that linguistically? I like it, is do support. Or do insertion.
I like do support. That's nice.
I like it too.
I love technical stuff like that though, because it sounds sort of silly, but legitimate.
But it's funny because one article we had said it's more common in British English than in American English. But speaking from the American side of the pond, I don't think like we just said, I don't think I've ever heard it except for can do.
Other than can do, but yeah.
No. But this all reminds me of something called, we're talking about technical terms, Right dislocation in English. I know it's very
Uncanny,
different.
Ross. I was thinking the same thing.
I know it's not technically the same thing at all, but it was a segue we could not resist. So, Fletcher, do you know what right dislocation is? I'm going to use a sentence right here. What we're talking about here, this right dislocation. What is she talking about? That Kathy.
Oh, well, okay. So you're putting the subject of the sentence at the end.
Hey, he's a pretty smart guy, that Fletcher.
That Fletcher.
My problem when I see the term, I'm sorry, Ross, I'm going to say dislocation, I immediately think of my shoulder.
I do too, Kathy. You said it. I immediately thought of shoulder dislocation too.
Go on.
But right dislocation has nothing to do with shoulders. And I'm going to give you the technical term, which is extremely boring, and then we're going to go into how it works. Right dislocation is a syntactic phenomenon where a constituent, typically a noun phrase, but doesn't have to be a noun phrase, is moved at the end of a sentence, often for emphasis or clarification. And then we can take two words here. We can see it immediately. Fletcher is a pretty smart guy. That's non-dislocated. Now let's dislocate it. He's a pretty smart guy, that Fletcher. And we can see what happens there. It does emphasize it. We're talking about Fletcher here. He's a smart guy.
Pretty smart. Come on, let's not overstate.
Spoken like a little sister.
I don't even think you need the that necessarily.
No, you don't.
I hear it. Yeah, he's a pretty smart guy, Fletcher.
Yeah. No, we wanted just to make it really, glaringly obvious.
Yeah, and I think you would more commonly hear it with that, or especially if it were written, because then you would be sure that you were talking about Fletcher specifically, not talking to Fletcher about some other smart guy. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah, that's actually, he's a pretty smart guy.
That's a good point.
Fletcher. Yeah, actually, yeah, good. I was going to say, so you do it with it could be different. If the direct object we're talking about, he's a pretty smart guy, that Fletcher. Indirect object, I gave him $1, that Fletcher over there, as opposed to the other Fletcher over there, I guess. I've never spoken to before the radio host. What's her name? That No, I can't say wife. What's your name, that Fletcher. What's your name, your wife? And there's no doubt they're unusually bright, your kids. So there are a lot of constructions in which this is. And every time I hear it, are you hearing the same thing as I am? There's a certain musicality, I think, in the phrase. And to me, I hear Irish accent.
I was going to say that thing too. I will just do it right now. It was lovely. It was. Irish do it a lot of times with verbs as well. She was an Irish lady, was my grandma. Those are both Irishy type usages.
Oh, wow.
Which are very much the same. And I mean, I think that's what really makes them interesting in language. They tend not to be used as much in written English as they used to be. They were more common. But this reminds me of something else. I'm just thinking, Fletcher, I'm sure you're wondering, if we have right dislocation, do you think we might have another kind of dislocation?
Could it be left dislocation?
Fletcher, you're brilliant. You had one choice and you got that choice. Fletcher, he's a heck of a guy. There's right dislocation.
You hear that a lot too, that I'm a heck of a guy. But also with that, right? That Fletcher, he's a heck of a guy.
He's a heck of a guy.
Yeah. Go, Ross. I'm sorry.
But there is a really interesting distinction here. Can you, I'm actually sort of curious, Fletcher, if on your own, can you figure out there is a definite difference in terms of right and left dislocation in terms of like meaning in a way? Can you figure that out or not?
Ross, can you clarify that a little bit? I'm sorry.
Ooh, Kathy, perfect. Right dislocation is usually or more often used as a clarifying afterthought. They went to the movies, Fletcher and Jordan. I mean, who went to the movies? Fletcher and Jordan did. It's clarifying who they are. You get it?
Yeah.
Now, the
left dislocation
is now. Let's going to try this one. We have Fletcher, the tiger bit him on the leg. Now, what's going
Ross,
on here?
why did you come up with that sentence?
A little passive aggression here, I think, against the radio host.
Passive?
Well, I'm not fighting.
Just go to the movies with Jordan?
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
Yeah, but Fletcher, what's happening here? Do you see what's happening with this one or not? I'm going to read you the non.
I don't know. I don't know. That
Okay.
example seems awkward.
Okay, the key thing here is that the tiger bit Fletcher on the leg basically says what the tiger did, okay? And the subject of the thing is the tiger. Throwing Fletcher in the front basically tells us the real thing of interest here isn't the tiger, it's Fletcher. Fletcher got bit.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see it? One is
Actually, though,
emphasizing...
I've got to tell you, Ross, I think that's a really bad example, though. You say Fletcher, the tiger bit him on the leg, looks very awkward. To me, it looks like you're saying Fletcher, the tiger bit Donald on the leg.
I see. Okay, that's a good point too.
Yeah, I think that's. Do you have another example of what you mean?
Well, let's write one up right now.
I mean, you could say if you didn't have, it doesn't illustrate the same point. I was going to say something like Fletcher, he went to the movies.
Well, it's sort of
actually,
I was going to do Fletcher. He knows a lot of grammar. Okay, Fletcher knows a lot of grammar. Sounds like we're talking about grammar. Fletcher really emphasizes here. It's Fletcher. He's the guy who knows a lot about grammar.
Okay,
That's
Fletcher knows a lot of grammar versus Fletcher. He knows a lot about grammar. Again, I think these are so. I'm sorry, I'm ruining this entire show.
I think that one is much more clear because we don't have like two. We don't have two things that could be doing action there.
Yeah,
right.
The key thing, I mean, these are subtle. These are not. I mean,
in honesty, though, Ross, I'm going to be really annoying. I'm sorry. But I mean, it ends up being, I don't think there's really much of a difference between Fletcher, he knows a lot of grammar, and Fletcher knows a lot of grammar.
I think there is. And it's subtle.
I agree.
I think we're basically saying Fletcher. We're really focusing here on Fletcher. Fletcher knows a lot of grammar can be a throwaway. Fletcher knows a lot of grammar. Fletcher knows a lot of things. Fletcher, he knows a lot of grammar, really gives it to me that Fletcher we're talking about here. I think there is a difference. It's subtle. It's not perfect, but I think it does show. It does show what's happening with left dislocation.
Yeah, I agree with you, Ross. I do see a difference there, or I see a potential difference there. Fletcher knows a lot about baseball. Fletcher knows a lot of grammar. These are things that he knows. Fletcher, he knows a lot of grammar. That guy, that Fletcher, he knows grammar.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Okay. I see what you're both saying. I think I just have a problem. To me, it ends up being sort of subtle.
Here's one. Okay. Those Toyotas, you can get a lot of airbags in them. Okay. Heavy metal, it's noisy.
Yeah.
And heavy metal, it's noisy. Okay, you're really focusing on the heavy. You see it when you read. Let's look at right.
Okay, you're convincing me, and I apologize for being difficult here. But
no, I mean that's what language is about. We try to figure it out.
It's just hot.
But I think you can really see it. You know.
Yeah.
Okay, here's one. Like, well, my car. It's an old one. That one really tells me I'm talking about my car. It's old. My car is old.
I think you're right because there's a lovely little emphasis. It was my car is old. I agree with you.
Then you're talking about an aspect of the car, whereas if you say my car, it's an old one. You're talking about the car.
Yeah, there's like I'm grokking it. I'm digging it.
Or waiting.
I'm doing something. I don't know what, but I get it. It's interesting though. It's really rare in written English. This sort of which makes sense.
Yeah. I don't think we really use either of them that much. Right dislocation seems more common than left dislocation, but I wouldn't say either of them would be written that much at all. Left,
right. What about
right dislocation? We would. He's a smart guy, that Fletcher. That I can see saying.
Well, I might say it with a different adjective.
She's a prolix sister, that Kathy, but whatever.
Okay, that I agree with. You forgot to mention my good looks, though. Sorry.
I'm not sure we forgot.
No, but I don't know that I'd really write it that often. I don't.
No,
I would use it conversationally.
Unless you were writing dialogue or something, you wouldn't.
Yeah.
Right. It's not that kind of thing. It's more of a spoken flourish.
I like it as a flourish. As a flourish, I think is to me more it. Yeah. Because you don't really need it.
Yeah. Yeah.
At
exactly.
all. Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Well, moving is not the correct word here. I'm not sure.
Oh, actually, it is, sadly.
Yeah, I think that was a bad segue, but whatever.
No.
Yeah, move on then.
Okay, but okay, this is a new segment we want to start doing because we've gotten actually a few emails on this sort of thing. And we thought it's time. We're talking about myth busting, in which we bust the happy myths of language. As in this question, asked by a listener, Maeve from Boston.
Hi, Maeve.
Hi, Maeve. It was a very fun email. So anyway, she wrote, I'm sorry, I'm already chuckling. Forgive me for this, but I have to know the definitive answer. Is the word crap truly from the inventor of the toilet? I'm sorry, Maeve. I adored your question because I too have wondered about this, and now I know. She said, this is something that we were tossing about a bit the other night, and I thought it best to go to experts. Incidentally, I say yay. My friend says nay. No, Fletcher, you were going to say something.
I was going to say it was supposedly because a guy named, I think, Thomas Crapper invented the toilet. Did I even get the first name?
You got the name right. You got it. You got the name.
Okay, we said thanks, Maeve, and sorry. She said yay. Her friend said nay. Her friend
the nay
wins.
is correct. It's basically basically just a coincidence. I mean, the word itself.
Wait.
I loved this question.
A coincidence. So there really was a Thomas Crapper who invented the toilet.
We're gonna go into this something. We're gonna call in a couple of minutes. We're gonna go into what is called nominative determinism.
Oh yeah,
which is a hypothesis that certain people gravitate towards jobs as a result of their names. In this case, it's not though. But we'll go there in a minute. But in this case, it's not because the word there's no relationship here. He didn't know it. But crappen comes from pluck or cut off. And from their crappe or siftings, Anglo-Latin crappa, chaff. And then it became residue for rendering fat, dregs of beer, and then the late 19th century. And this comes basically when crapper invented the thing.
Sorry. It's just so funny that. Sorry, go on.
No, go on, Kath. You can.
I was going to say no, Ross. You were doing fine. No, in 1846, the term crap became to defecate. Up until that point, but it was all from things that were discarded, as Ross was saying, like residue, dregs of beer, chaff, siftings. So it was a very distinguished thing. Crapper now
was Thomas Crapper was born in 1836, so he clearly had nothing to do with that slang.
Unless he was really precocious.
I know. He was an English plumber and businessman, founded Thomas Crapper and Company in London. And I mean, I don't want to get into the toilet thing completely, but his genius really was the bowl. I mean, the S-bend plumbing trap. And he basically kept the water in the bowl so he could flush, which we now know is such a brilliant invention. But he had nothing. He did not give the name to him.
That's shocking.
I love the fact, though, that he really became big because a satirist from New Zealand, I didn't know this, Wallace Rayburn, wrote a fictional biography of Thomas Crapper in 1969. And basically from that point on, Crapper was legend. Up until that point, probably a few people had heard the name, but then it was like, boom! It was cromulent.
It's so fun. But he was, Crapper was a really, he was a genius and he had very high quality products. But this prompted us to go into something called nominative determinism.
I love this.
And this is a hypothesis that certain people gravitate to jobs as a result of their names. Now, you can believe it or not, this theory was actually published in a very reputable journal, the New Scientist magazine, during 1994. And they're talking about this phenomenon. Is it true or not? we rounded up a couple of examples here, which I just love. I think it's coincidence. I really do. I mean, our name Petrus means rock. Petra means rock in Greek, and I don't really see like Kathy. I mean, neither of us are rock geologists.
As a kid. Are you kidding them? Remember,
I
love
geology.
Yeah, just remember that. Uh-oh.
Maybe we're in the wrong business. But we got a bunch of names here. Sarah Blizzard, a famous meteorologist. I love Usain Bolt.
Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt.
Yeah, Usain Bolt.
I'm sorry, Usain Bolt. Yeah. My favorite though is Lord Brain, a neuroscientist.
Oh man. You know what? My favorite from my personal life is I played Little League baseball with a kid whose father was a chiropractor. Their last name was Bone Break.
You're kidding.
Heavens.
Isn't that amazing?
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I like that. And then we also had Brad Slaughter, who was a meat manager, which I thought was good.
Yeah, this stuff's always fun. And I mean, it's, obviously it's got to be more that you just notice the fact that their name lines up with something else, because there are lots of people with the name Porter or Cooper or whatever that don't do anything.
I never see you doing anything with
I do very little with arrows. I do very little with arrows. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there really is a good was like a substitute teacher named Mr. Fill-In.
There was a funeral home, and I'm sure it's not pronounced that way, but it's Amigone. Am I gone? A funeral home.
Oh my gosh.
Wow.
Oh my.
Oh, and then I have Burns Crematory. My favorite though recently was a foreign language teacher, Mr. English.
I know, I like that too. But you can see how it's like completely, arbitrary too, because there was a Russian springboard diver, and she's Russian. So I mean, born in Russia, and her name was Svetlana Filipova.
Oh, Filipova, yeah.
Yeah, but the point is, like, that didn't determine. I don't know what Filipova. I think it means like daughter of Philip or something in Russian.
Probably,
it does not mean flip over on the swim board. But it's like
I have to read you guys. I'm sorry, I just found this headline. It was in NJ.com. It's not really nominative determinism, but it's just funny. Man named Bacon charged in fight over last piece of sausage, cops say.
Okay, we have another pet peeve. We just came in from Bobby in San Antonio, and this is one of ours as well.
Okay.
You asked about pet peeves. Here's mine. People using explicate when they should have used explain. Do they think they sound smarter? It really gets to me.
They do.
It gets to me too. It gets to all of us, I think. And we actually looked when we got the email. We looked and we found Vanity Fair. And Gwyneth Paltrow, always a favorite to diss when it comes to grammar.
Speaking of sounding smarter.
Okay, we have the quote. Speaking at the SAGE Summit in Chicago this week, Paltrow, who spoke alongside Hello Giggles founder Zoe Deschanel, explicated her goals for the brand.
Is that example that bad? I mean, she probably didn't just explain them. She detailed each point, right?
Okay, you're probably right, but it was Gwyneth Paltrow, so come on.
Low-hanging fruit.
A little slack. Actually, though, it's interesting. You actually completely understand the meaning of the word explicate versus explain, and it's just what you said. People seem to think that explicate is the same as explain, and we call it a pretentious confusable. We've talked about confusables a lot.
Sure.
And explicate is you're methodically explaining or developing a theory or laying it out. It's much more explain. You're just saying, what is this about?
Yeah, and in that sense, I disagree with Fletcher. She's speaking at a summit. It's basically, I mean, she's not going to go through like a theory of her theory of brand stuff. She's going to basically give you I see where I mean,
you're probably right. You're probably right. We weren't there, so we don't
That's
know.
true.
I'm like removing myself from this because I love Gwyneth.
But I think I agree with Kathy, and I mean we all agree. I think it tends to be way overused, and it reminds me of we've had a number of these before, and I think it's generally used just to sound fancier. There's no
utilize,
yeah,
utilize, simplistic versus simple. We've talked about
simplistic is really wrong when used for simple.
Yeah,
usually.
yeah.
That one, explicate, like Fletcher. Actually, this is sort of interesting because Fletcher is right. There is a distinction between explain and explicate, but it can get fuzzy. So in that case,
yeah, you probably know
simplistic isn't.
You probably know that somebody means explain when they say explicate. Yeah. You probably know that somebody means use when they say utilize because they do mean that. But when somebody says simplistic instead of simple, those are different words and they mean different things, and that can cause a lot of confusion if you do know the difference.
Right.
You do. That's where you need to explicate to them the difference.
And we would like to emphasize this is not a simplistic show.
Well, that's debatable. At least one third. Yeah. You guys, you're fine.
I don't know, Fletcher. Well, I don't know. We know about me and my logic problems. So.
You're Saying It Wrong is part of the NPR network and is produced in the studios of KMUW in Wichita, Kansas by me, Fletcher Powell. Kathy Petrus records from her home in Armia, Spain, Ross Petrus from his home in Toronto, Ontario in Canada. Torrin Anderson composed our theme music, and our digital team is Beth Golay and Carly Cooper. You can find all of our past episodes by subscribing to the You're Saying It Wrong podcast wherever you get your podcasts, or by visiting us at kmuw.org. If you have a question for Kathy and Ross, if you'd like to suggest a topic, or you just want to reach out, you can email me at powell@kmuw.org or email them at kandrpetrus@gmail.com. You can also email us a voice memo of you asking it your question. You might get your voice heard on air. If you'd like to do the same thing by downloading the KMUW app, you can do that and just click the Talk to Us button. You can find all of Kathy and Ross's books pretty much anywhere you get books, and a handful of them are also available on audiobook read by the authors themselves. Thanks for joining us. We'll be back next week.